Thanks for tuning in to the Charles Novell School of Music podcast, The Best Day Yet. Here you'll find tips, insight, and information to help your music and your ministry succeed. Whether you're a singer, a musician, or a songwriter, we want to help you where you are, but we also want to help you get to where you want to go. We believe that our talents are God's gift to us, but what we do with those are our gift back to God. Yesterday's information is important, but what we can learn today will make this the best day yet. Hey everybody, Rob Novell back with you for another episode of the CNS podcast, The Best Day Yet. Hope this finds all well with you today. Listen, I am extremely excited today. We are officially 1 month out from CNS 23. Man, absolutely the highlight of my entire year is the week that we spend together as a CNS family on the campus of Murray State University, learning, socializing, visiting, being spiritually uplifted, networking, just having fun in the Lord at CNS. So really excited about this as well, but nervous at the same time with the next statement I'm going to say. We are quickly approaching having to cap things out and close registration because of the number of students that we have registered. That's super exciting, but at the same time, it's sad because it means we may not get to meet you. So if you're listening to this and you have had any thoughts of attending CNS 23, we need to hear from you immediately. You can find us at www.cnsmusic.com. You can contact us for more information, or you can register directly on our website. It's going to be an amazing week. We have vocal labs, we have piano labs, we have guitar classes, we have theory classes, we have performance classes, songwriting, a worship course, you name it, we do it. And it's going to be a great week. So we would love to have you with us. All right, today's topic, man, this is a good one, and we'll talk some different points, and I'll kind of elaborate on some things, but this is a big one, and it's the title today is being yourself, how to be you, how to be yourself. Here's the thing, and I've heard it said this way, and I love this. Don't try to be someone else. Be who God's created you to be. And when you think about it, imitations don't cost as much as the original. Imitations are not as near valuable as the original. If you don't believe me, go to New York and buy a Rolex off the street. Get you one of them. See if it doesn't turn your arm green by the time your plane lands back in your home state. Imitations are not as valuable as the original. If you're trying to be someone else, you're devaluing yourself. God created you to be you. God created me to be me. That's a neat thing about CNS is we'll have 100 students there that everybody is coming from a different place, all different backgrounds, small to tall. We'll have them there in single digits, and we'll have them up into their 80s with us this year. Different denominations, different backgrounds, different styles of music, different preferences of music. But when it comes down to it, we're all there for one purpose. And that's to give our gifts back to the Lord and to honor Him and to minister for Him and to be more effective in our ministry for Him. But it starts with the obvious. We're going to have 100 individual people there, not copies. We're going to have original pieces of art. That's what God created. I remember as a kid, the t-shirt, I know I'm special because God doesn't make no junk. That's true. The word says we are fearfully and wonderfully made. We were created by the creator of the universe, the most creative person ever in existence of everness. He created us. So He created us to be unique and us to be special. You know, I've shared this before. I grew up a little bit of a tug of war for me. I grew up in a musical home, a ministry home, but I grew up in this school. So everyone knew my dad, and my dad was an extremely gifted individual, especially when he would sit down at the piano. And man, for years, everyone just expected me to be the next Charles Novell. I've shared this legally. I am Charles Robert Novell II. I've just gone by my middle name for 50 years. I go by Rob. But my dad was Charles. I'm Charles Robert II. My son is Charles Robert III. He goes by the name Trey. When Trey was born, my grandfather was John Robert Novell. So when my son was born, the name Rob Novell, Robert Novell, became 100 years old. So 4 of us named similar, but we're all different people. And I felt the pressure of trying to have to answer to those people's level of expectation of me being the next Charles Novell. And I've shared it on here. Part of my story, part of my testimony is I pursued bass guitar, and I traveled full time in gospel music. Love that. I've been doing session work since I was 13, 40 years, been doing studio work. And it started on the bass guitar. A lot of people know me as a bass guitarist. They have no idea I play the piano. And then there's other people that know me as a piano player, have no idea I play the bass guitar or the other instruments that I play. But I pursued the bass trying to create a little bit of individuality for Rob. And it wasn't in a good sense. It wasn't Rob trying to be himself. It was Rob running from really the call that God had on my life. And I was allowing the enemy to speak into me and use people to speak into me in a negative way to keep me from fulfilling what God was needing me to do. So I had to come to grips with something. I had to get to a point where kind of our first point today, I in being yourself and in finding out today how to be yourself, the first thing we have to do is we have to know ourselves. You need to know yourself. Our beliefs about who we are, go all the way back to our childhood. As I was just sharing, we're born in situations, we're born in settings, we're born into families that sometimes can identify who we are. Super proud of my heritage. But again, Rob had a period where Rob wanted to go off and kind of create Rob's own name. And so we're born as sponges. We soak up our environment, and really without even realizing it, we form an opinion of ourselves that we think is true, but actually it's how others want us to be. So, trying to live up to what they were trying to speak into me, for me, this was a negative thing. These opinions become our limited beliefs. They kind of bar us, cage us, chain us to a way of thinking. And that, y'all, is nothing but the enemy. He wants to deceive us. He wants to lie to us. He wants us to convince ourselves that we're not who God wants us to be. So how can I be myself? You know what? You've got to get rid of all of that superficial enemy telling you this is who you are. You got to strip that down, and you got to get a little deeper to the core of who God created you to be. Second thing, we got to let go of negative self-talk. When we start limiting ourselves, that begins to grow as we begin to talk negative about ourselves. I've said it this way: there's a thin line between constructive and destructive criticism. And, in our circles, in the music field, you hear this all the time. I'm my own worst critic. I get that. Listen, I release CDs. I have my own studio. I produce my own projects. I take way longer than I need to release a CD. Why? Because I keep listening to it and hearing things, and I want to go in and tweak and adjust and change it. Listen, if I was paying a record company for that project, I would not put near the time in that I do, because of the bill that would be getting higher and higher and higher. So we've got to be careful how we speak to ourselves. We can't necessarily, you may tell yourself things like, I can't do any better than this because I've always played this way. I've always sang this way. Or I'm just not good at this. I have students tell me that, you know what? I just can't do this. I can play video games easier than I can play the piano. Okay. Of course, it doesn't take much skill. Here comes the hate emails. To play video games, it takes skill and ability and time and discipline to play an instrument. So you've got to tell yourself, you know what? Yes, you can do this. You may have high levels of perfection. You may be a perfectionist where you're not okay. And to a certain degree, I believe this way. I don't think we should settle. I think God did so much for us when he gave us his son that if we settle for mediocrity and we were like, okay, that's good enough. I don't think that is fulfilling our obligation when we give our gifts and talents back to God. I think we should strive to be the best that we can be. But listen, you are good enough. Stop saying you're not. Stop saying you can't. I remember my dad, man, he would say, Robbie, we don't use 4-letter words in this house. And I'm like, yeah, Dad, I know that. And he said, well, I heard you say one earlier. And I freaked out. I was young, like 42. I was younger than that. And I'm like, oh, goodness, what did I say? What did I say? And I was going to throw the kids on the school bus under the bus. I heard that on the bus, Dad. I don't use that language. No, he said the 4-letter word I heard you say was can't. We don't use that word around here. So he instilled that in me just to speak positive things over my life. Number 3, focus on your strengths. And this is kind of a core mission statement of CNS. When I'm talking to prospective students about attending a CNS, I like to tell them this way. We're going to focus on your strengths, but we're going to help you develop your weaknesses. Find out what you're good at. So kind of back to my story again and the whole, play the piano like Charles. I listen, I had to come to grips with I cannot wear my dad's shoes. Literally. I wear a 10.5. My dad wore an 8. I cannot wear his shoes. I have to come to grips with Rob has a set of abilities that Rob excels in, and I need to operate within that. One of the weirdest moments for me was mid-90s. We were in the recording studio, and we were cutting tracks for an artist in their new project. And we were cutting this particular track, and we got done, and Dad was, man, Robbie, rewind that. That was pitiful. I need to play that again. And so I rewound it and let him have it. And he's like, man, let me go back. I'm not getting it. And finally, he stood up. He said, hey, Robbie, come here. And I'm like, oh, what's going on? So I got up. I went over there. He said, sit down and play this. He said, this is more your style than it is mine. And we were a good 1-2 punch there. I grew up in the 80s, so I went through the whole, contemporary Christian scene, and, my roots are Southern, my roots are church music. So I learned to play that. But my dad preached versatility. He said, Robbie, you're going to be more successful in life and in your music if you are not one-dimensional. So he encouraged me to kind of reach out of the box, and I did. And in this particular case, in this session that day, it was all about, you know what, Robbie, this is more you than it is me. And man, that was a weird moment. But when I look back, it was affirmation. It was, you know what, he asked me, my initial thought was, I can't sit down at Charles Novell's keyboard and play something on this person's project. After that, I began to play a little more and a little more on the keyboard. And, yes, there were certain things that I leaned a little more towards. I was talking to a student earlier this week, and I'm like, look, what you just did right there, that is a strength for you. We need to focus on that. We need to work more in that lane with you. Nothing wrong with the other thing that we did, but that right there, that's a strength of yours. So I think you need to focus on your strengths. The next thing, big one here. Stop living in the past. Stop living in the past. Listen, the you that you are today is different than the you were 30 years ago. Look, it's simple. I told you a while ago, I can't wear my dad's shoes. I can't fit in the clothes I wore in the 80s. So I can't be who I was in the 80s. I have to focus on who I am now. And hopefully you've done the same thing if you've been in this for a while. If not, and you're just kind of starting into this journey of bettering yourself, studying, learning, growing, developing, being the best you that you can be for the Lord. If you're at the beginning stages of this, then you know what? What you do is we're building skyscrapers here. You lay a foundation and then we build each level up, straight up, till we have that skyscraper erected. So over the last several decades, I've worked, I've studied, I've put sweat and effort into my music, and I'm a much better musician now than I was 20, 30 years ago, a year ago, 2 years ago. This particular student I was talking about a while ago, she's a student at CNS, but I also teach her weekly. We have a thing called creative coaching with CNS where you can study with our staff year round. We do virtual lessons. I meet with her every other week. And we had a goal at the end, right after CNS 22. She's like, when I come back next year, there's 2 things I want to do. She's doing them. We still have a month to go. She achieved this a couple months ago. So about a 9-month process. So that gave us 3 months to really fine tune and tweak. And that's where I told her the other night, I'm like, look, first thing was good. This right here, what you just finished, man, that's a strength for you. Over here, let's keep working and developing that, but let's really focus in on this right here. So again, we're focusing on strengths, and we're moving from the past into where we are. If her mentality was where it was 11 months ago, she wasn't doing what she's doing now. So if she was focusing there, she would not be able to do what she's doing today. Let's put some word to that. It says his mercies are new every single day. The grace that he gave me yesterday is different than the grace I needed today, or he's going to have waiting for me tomorrow. We face different situations, and I think we can not twist it, but I think we can apply that without misinterpreting God's word into our music. It needs to be new every day. We build on what he's given us. So stop living in the past, focus on the now, live in the now, and work towards the future. Another one of our kind of mission statements with CNS is we honor those that came before us. We're developing those that are here with us now, beside us. And man, we're looking for the future. We're looking for young people to help encourage them to use their giftings for the Lord. So we're not living in the past, but we honor our past. We're focusing on now, and while we're focusing on now, we're looking ahead. So stop living in the past. The next one, stop caring about what others think. Listen, for years, my biggest struggle was everything that I did musically was all about how are others going to accept this? How are others going to receive this? Is this going to be impressive enough in certain circles to open doors for me? Now, I do believe there has to be, and if you think about it, in any level, any story, any successful story, there has to be a level, if it's business, if it's a sports franchise, if it's a restaurant, there's a level of competition, I think, that goes into play with being successful. If you're going to be successful with something, I think you got to have a little bit of competitive spirit, maybe not so much with others, but, with yourself. In our home, again, we never reached the bar, because if we got close to it, Dad just kicked it up another notch. That was the competitiveness that drove us in the Novell house. So stop caring about what other people think. Listen, it's not their decision that's going to get you anywhere. You need the approval of one person. You're playing, you're singing, you're writing songs for an audience of one. Don't worry about what others think about yourself. Quit trying to size yourself up to your own thoughts of what you think is good or not good. You be obedient. The scripture, I read it the other day, if you're willing and obedient, you'll eat from the best of the land. Listen, for Rob, The best of the land doesn't mean I drive a Maserati and live in a 6,000 square foot home. I don't need that. That's not the best for me. The best for me is looking and realizing the blessings in my life. I have an amazing wife. I have 2 amazing kids. We got an okay dog. We live in a house. No one's coming and knocking on the door saying we're here to foreclose on your home. We have cars in the driveway. No one is knocking on the door saying, you know what, we're impounding or what's the word? Not revoking, repossessing. There's the word. This car. Those are blessings in my life. That's where God is allowing me to eat from the best of the land. I look at that with my music as well. You know, I have had certain levels of success and reached certain plateaus and then went on from there with certain things in my music. And I'm grateful for that and I'm thankful for that. But that's not my end game. That just drives me to keep competitively inside again, trying to be the best that I can be for the Lord. I'm not doing it to impress people anymore. Those days are over. You know, back to the 80s. Bigger, better, from hair to your equipment. Man, we would load cars and trailers to get to a gig and take in my bass rig. You all back in the day was so big. My back hurts just thinking about trying to have to carry that into a venue today, 30 years later. To the extent, you know, I'm on the internet the other night looking for a tiny bass guitar amp so I can get something very comfortably to Murray for CNS 23. So the days of trying to impress people with this and that, those are over. Let's go on. Be open to change. Man, I'm preaching at the choir here, and we've talked about this before. That's a word I'm just not good with, have never been good with. Man, I look back, you know, elementary school to junior high. That was a rough summer. The night before the first day of middle school, junior high, rough night. I didn't sleep. Nervous wreck. Middle school, junior high to high school, same thing. Rough summer, rough first night before I got up to go to class. Just never go with change. I get comfortable and I'm good there. Man, I've had to challenge myself with my music over the years to be willing to change. We talked about versatility earlier. Man, honestly, one of the things that irks me the most, one of my biggest pet peeves in my circles and what I do in the space that God has me in with my music are those individuals that, man, it's their way or the highway. It's about one style of music. It's about doing this and not willing to think of it this way. I look at our styles of music as, let's talk ice cream for a minute. Let's go with Baskin Robbins. What's their slogan? 31 flavors, right? Because everybody that comes in there is going to like something a little different. Man, that's my take on our styles of music. Bottom line is this: if it uplifts the Lord, I'm all about it. We have had students come into CNS and truly be themselves. We had a young man one year that came from Mobile, Alabama. We introduced him in performance training. That class is where you get up and you perform, and our faculty critique you on your performance and help you with things like your stage presence and how to handle your microphone and your pitch and MC techniques and various things that go with performance and go into that side of our ministries. And we introduced him. He's walking up onto the stage, and he might have taken that first step up, 3 steps to the stage. And he turned around to the back and said, "Hit it, DJ." And I'm like, what's going on? About the time this music started, and man, the bass was thumping, it was bumping, the walls were moving. He was a Christian rapper. We had no idea. We have no idea. For me, rapping happens 3 times a year. I'm sorry. Christmas, my wife's birthday, and our anniversary. That's the only time I rap. Bad joke. I know. I'm sorry. Sorry. If you've listened to any of these, it's your fault, because you know what's waiting when you hit play on any of these episodes. If I'm on them, you know what's waiting on you. But listen, that was what he was called to in his testimony. He was in that kind of music in the secular world, and man, God changed him. And I've heard people say, "Man, I got saved and did a 360." Man, that's not a good thing. 360 is a complete circle. That means God found you where you were, and now you're telling everybody that you went 360 degrees. You're right back to where He found you. But a 180 is the better description of that. He did a 180 in His life, but He was using the same style of music that He was finding Himself getting Himself into trouble. He was taking that same music into those same circles with some of those same acquaintances, and now was sharing the gospel and started to win people to the Lord and convert them. So at the end of the day, whether you like it or not, what you're saying you don't like is the fact that somebody got saved. And that, that's a slippery slope. I'd be really, really careful with how you judge someone's soul and someone's salvation. So, I think change can be good. It's hard. We've talked about this. 2020 was a rough year. We went through COVID, and we had to do a lot of things differently. Change was a word that God really began to deal with me on. And to be honest, I've been through a lot of change over the last 3 years. I lost my dad. That's a huge change in my life. My dad was my biggest musical influence, my mentor, my teacher, my dad, my business partner, but my best friend. I lost that. A year after Dad. I lose my brother, Jeff Stice. Again, mentor, teacher, friend. I was studying with Jeff at the school when I was 12 years old. Dad hired Jeff in 1982. I was 12. Jeff came in to teach at the school, and I studied piano with him. And we developed a relationship that he ended up just a vital part of the Novell family and a vital part of the Charles Novell School of Music. And Jeff, I have a sister, love my sister, but I never had a brother. And Jeff filled that. God used him to fill that position in my life. And me and Jeff would have real talks, y'all, real talks. There were times that we call them moments of intense fellowship in the Novell house. Man, me and Jeff, we would get on a subject, and basketball. We could just almost be yelling at each other because we would disagree on something. But at the end of it, we're laughing and hugging. And man, we just were real. That was a real, genuine relationship. And he could speak into me. So within a year, go from my dad now to my brother. And it was hard, And, truth be known, I think I'm still working through that and moving forward. You never truly come to grips with losing important people like that. But I do know this. The change for me was also a change for them. And the change for them, they are home, they're healthy, they're whole, they're looking at Jesus. How in the world would I want that to change? My change is insignificant to the glory that changed for them and the outcome of where they are now. So, change is part of life. We got to deal with it. We got to roll through it. Change is part of our music. Change is part of our ministries. Change is part of our careers. Change is part of our livelihood. Change is part of the seasons. I grew up in Southern Ohio. We had 4 distinct seasons. Living in Georgia, man, sometimes given year, we can skip spring and go from winter straight into summer. It's not as dominant or predominant as it was when I was living in Ohio. Be vulnerable. It's easy to show off the good parts of ourselves. But truly to be yourself, you have to be your whole self. That means being willing to be vulnerable. If you're wondering, how can I be myself? The answer is, step into your hurts and your pains and the trials you've been through. Face the fears. I'm having to deal with that. The vulnerability for me is dealing with this change over the last several years that I just shared with you. I got to hit that stuff head on. I've got to be open and honest with people and my friends in my circle of my life. I got to let them know, how I really feel about things. I got to share my wife. I got to share my deepest fears with her. I can't hold those in. I got to be vulnerable. Those were 2 people that I was able to be vulnerable to. God is starting to place some people into my life now. Those were the only 2 in my life. I live in Georgia. There's no one here that has showed me the level of interest to speak into my life like my brother did and like my dad did. But God's replacing that with other people where I can share things with and they can help me get through things. You've got to express yourself. Expressing yourself can help you. It can help you determine what you enjoy, how your experiences affect you, and how to truly start being yourself. You know, we can express ourselves in multiple ways. One good thing that I had actually a counselor at one point in my life, I was going through some counseling, dealing with some things. They told me, start journaling, to keep a record of what I did. So I could look back on each day, and that would show me things that I enjoyed, as well as things that, I could have done better, and worked on those strengths and weaknesses. Again, express yourself, through your music, express your, it's through the gift, these giftings that God has given you. For me, some days my best friend is my music. I can, on a bad day, I can sit down and start playing the piano, and God uses that tool, that instrument, to make me happy and to bring joy into my life. When we're doing what we love the most, that's when we truly are feeling the most ourselves, the most, and we feel like we get the most out of ourselves. I know that is definitely true for me. Get out of your comfort zone. Several years ago through music school, I remember standing up in front of the students, and I told them that. I said those exact words. I said, look, you need to get out of your comfort zone. You need to leave this school, go home next week, and do something you've never done. Step into an area that God is needing you to walk into, a place you've never been before. You're making fresh footprints on that path. And, about that time, God looked at me and said, why don't you try that on yourself, big boy? And here's what it was. Up to that point, I had been involved on over 1,500 recording projects, but I had never done my own solo project. So I came home from the school and couldn't shake that. So God challenged me, have my own studio, but I worked for other people. I never did my own music, never did my own recordings. God challenged me to get out of my comfort zone. Once I did that, man, I don't know. I'm 14, 15 projects in now. I mean, once God can open a door for you, that can be a long journey until he decides maybe to shut that door. So get out of your comfort zone. The last thing, to truly be yourself, I think you need to put yourself around other people that can help you grow, can help you develop. I remember in ministry several years ago, I was working with some young people, and I was speaking, given a sermon basically on a youth group setting. And my topic was this: you need to take friend inventory of your life. Inventory is one of the most important things in any business. And I believe in our own lives that our friend inventory, the circles that we keep. Here's the thing. And I challenged those kids that night. I said this. I said, look at your circle of friends. If you can look 10 years down the road and see yourself still with those people, hang on to them. If you can look 10 years down the road and those people aren't going to be part of your future, you need to kick them to the curb now. Take friend inventory of your life. In this area of developing in your music, CNS is such a great place to do this. We're building, and we've built a family, we've built a community. When you come to CNS and you plug into one of our events, be it our summer session, we call that our national session, or whether you do one of our weekend regionals or our online school or our creative coaching that I mentioned earlier, or we're going to have some specialized weekend sessions next year that are emphasis driven. We're talking a songwriting retreat. We're talking a vocal retreat. We're talking an a piano retreat. When you start surrounding yourself with like-minded people, you find your community. And that also helps you truly determine who you are. Man, the last thing I want to say, and then we'll close out for today, is this. The comparative game is dangerous. Don't compare yourself to someone else. I had many a long, hard years going through that, saying, man, I want to be that person. I want to play like that. I want to do that. I want to go there. I want that stage. I want that. No. You be confident and comfortable with where God has placed you. Here's what the word says. If you're faithful with the little, what? He'll increase. He'll give you the large. He'll give you more. So be comfortable where you are. I think that's truly how you find yourself. Accept, receive yourself, know yourself, build off those strengths and weaknesses. Be open to change. Let me encourage you. Be motivated to step out of the box, out of your comfort zone. Get out of that comfort zone and then put yourself around like-minded people. And I promise you, when you do that, you're going to find out you truly know who you are, and it will make it your best day yet. Thanks for listening to the Charles Novell School of Music podcast, The Best Day Yet. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter under the name the Charles Novell School of Music. And for more information on CNS and our upcoming events, like our online school, our weekend regional sessions, our creative coaching, and our pastor's retreat, you can visit us at our website at www.cnsmusic.com. As you've listened to this episode, we hope that you've gained some information that you can apply to your music and to your ministry to make today the best day yet.